rest of the service.
Well, what's up? How's everybody doing this morning? I'm not Pastor Ray. I am the less athletic version who likes to eat more. So we have that going for us. My name is Brad, and I get to come up here and speak today, and I am so excited. Thank you, Bryce. As I said last time I spoke, I like when Bryce is on the video because nobody's going to get up and walk out of this message because we don't have Connection Point today, which is always a winner for me. Y'all can walk out of Pastor Ray's messages. That's totally fine, but don't walk out on mine. So I don't see anybody get up. But with that being said, Connection Point is very important. We do encourage you to sign up for it. It's a way for you to grow. It's a way for you to create community. We have volunteers serving now that have gone through Connection Point. I personally love Connection Point, so we're going to be launching that next week, so I encourage you to scan those QR codes in front of you. You can sign up for that. Now, as you see the graphic behind me, we are starting a new series, Getting Schooled. Last time we got to talk, I enjoy talking to you guys. It's therapeutic. Get to hang out here with you guys for a little bit. Last time I let you in on a story of how I hit somebody in a box truck in Chicago, yeah. And my son, with all his wisdom, let me know I hit someone. So this time I have a story. Getting schooled is important. I'm actually back in school right now. Yeah, I am. The 12th grade has never looked better. I am 21 Jump Street in it because I'm 30 and they think I'm 17 at school. It's really working. Some of you got that joke. Some of you older people got that joke. I am in school. I'm actually getting my master's. I'm in divinity school, and I'm excited about that. I'm working on it. Yeah, got some claps. I quit yesterday, no, I didn't. So I was in divinity school last week. I had to go once a semester, so I'm up in Louisville, and man, that's a boring place. Sorry if any of you are from Louisville. And I was up there, and my beautiful wife called me at 7:30 in the morning. I got my backpack. I'm leaving my hotel, almost a motel, and I'm leaving it, and I'm talking to my wife. I'm like, I love you too, babe. I love you. And I rented a Nissan Rogue. Now, I like Rogues. They're really nice cars. And my wife's talking to me. I open up the back seat, and I sling my backpack in there. I'm like ready for school, right? And then I'm alerted by some mariachi music. And I'm like, why am I hearing? I'm like, something's not right. And I look, and right where I threw my backpack, this guy was laying back, sleeping in the car. I almost want to say, dude, you're in the wrong car. But then I'm like, well, the mariachi music, he must have a key. And then I realized it was the wrong car. I literally threw my bag in the wrong car. Dude didn't even flinch. He just kept laying there. He's like, you're not interrupting my sleep. It's 7:30 in the morning. I'm listening to mariachi music, and that's going to wake me up. I don't know how anybody sleeps during mariachi music, first off. But this guy was out. My bag must have, flew right over his eyes. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I got the wrong car. And I closed the door, and Kristen said, what's going on? I said, I threw my bag in the wrong car. I learned the difference that day between a Chevrolet SUV and a Nissan SUV. They don't look the same, but in my brain at 7:30, they do. So yeah, that's my getting schooled story. I thought I'd share that with you guys today. Today, we're going to be talking about listening. I hope all of you like listening, right? Except when I'm speaking. But most of you like listening. And today, I want to start us in the book of Kings. But the Old Testament, the Old Testament's really cool. I love the Old Testament because it's God-breathed, right? God breathed the Old Testament. And to know the New Testament, we have to know the Old, right? We have to know what happened in the Old Testament to know what's going to happen in the New Testament because God breathed it all. And I want to start with this verse from Solomon. But before we talk about this verse from Solomon, if y'all don't know who Solomon is, he has a really cool book in the Bible. And Sunday school teachers don't like to talk about this book, right? They want to skip over this book. So when I was, young lad, they didn't want to speak about Song of Solomon. So I went home and was like, I'm going to read this book. I'm going to find out what all this is about. So I opened up my Bible. I read Solomon, and I said, I don't really know what this is all about. I mean, I don't really get it. Like, I'm 10 years old. What's going on in the book of Solomon? Why don't they want to talk about it? Now, as a grown man, I do know what the book of Solomon is about, but it's about what a healthy relationship should look like with your family and with your wife. But with that being said, let me tell you, so Solomon is being told by God, you can ask for anything in the world. Man, I can think of a million things I'd want to ask for. So Solomon he can ask for anything, money, riches, anything he wants. And in Kings, he says, here's what I want, a God-listening heart, so I can lead your people well, discerning the difference between good and evil. He asked for that. This guy's the smartest man to ever live, right? Smartest man in the world. My son probably the second because he told me I hit a truck. But Solomon's up there. And we learn from him later in Chronicles, he's going to tell God, I want wisdom. Right? So he's got this God-listening heart. Now he wants wisdom. What is wisdom? Wisdom is the ability to hear God. And listening is hearing what God is saying. How many of you want a God-listening heart and God-listening ears? You know, when I talk to my son, I say, hey, I want you to listen to me. He can listen, but is he hearing what I'm saying to him? I want him to clean his room. He's like, I got that, Dad, I got that. But are you really hearing what I want you to say? Are we really hearing what God wants us to hear? So our story today is going to take place in Matthew. It's a story we all know. If you come to church at Christmas, you've definitely heard this story. And we're going to do a little bit of Christmas in September, Christmas at Labor Day. I like that. It's not bad. So we're going to go to Matthew 2, 13 through 15. After the wise men were gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Get up, flee to Egypt with the child and his mother. The angel said, stay there until I tell you to return, because Herod is going to search for the child to kill him. That night, Joseph left for Egypt with the child and Mary, his mother, and they stayed there until Herod's death. This fulfilled what the Lord had spoken through the prophet, I called my son out of Egypt. We don't know a lot about Joseph, right? We do know a little bit. He was probably a stone mason. He probably worked on stone. But what we do know is he had a God-listening heart. He listened to what God was saying. He didn't wait. He didn't pause. He didn't do anything but go, right? Do you think God would entrust the Son of God with two people who didn't have listening ears for God? No, they wouldn't. He wouldn't. I said they. He wouldn't. He wouldn't do that. Joseph was already in tune with God. Was he perfect? No. Did he worry? Yes. But did he do it? Of course he did. So, a listening heart obeys immediately. Some of you, that hit you hard right there, right? Because how many of you have heard from God in your heart and said, no, I'm going to wait until tomorrow. No, I'm going to wait until next week. And then a week passes and a month passes. And then it's like, well, I don't think I need to do that anymore, right? I want to share with you guys a story. I talk about Trent sometimes. You know, last time I was up here, I was talking about how I planted a church, and I want to share you a little bit about Trent. Some of you heard me talk about Trent Rankin. He's a great friend of mine, but it didn't always start that way. We ended up planting a church, Salvation Church in Gastonia. They're growing. It's a great church over there on the west side of Gastonia, closer to Dallas area. So Trent's wife, we're going to keep this in the room, right? Let's keep this in this room. Trent's wife was my girlfriend in kindergarten. Yes, first girlfriend. I love to rub that in his face a lot. So we reconnected years later, probably 30 years later. She's like, we should all go out. Your wife, my husband, Trent. I'm like, oh, okay, I think that sounds fun. So we went out, and I met this dude, Trent. He was the greatest dude. We were sitting there eating. He didn't want to talk to me at all, and y'all know me. I like to talk. So I was talking to Trent, and he had a grimace on his face. We left there. I said to my wife, I like that dude. She said, really? I said, yeah, I like him. So I would text him. I would text him, every few hours to talk. No, not hours. And I would text him because I felt like God was saying, this guy's important. You need to know this guy. I kept hearing from God going, you need to talk to this guy. So I would text him, ask him to play golf. And I remember coming home one day, I told my wife, I said, look, if he blows me off one more time, I'm not texting him again, at least until tomorrow. I won't text him. She said, it's going to work out. I said, okay, let's see. He finally responds. We go play golf. It was fun. The rest is history, blah, blah, blah. No, he continued to pour into my life as a Christ follower. And I got a front row seat from a man who loved Jesus and worshiped God. So he's an associate pastor at his dad's church, and he's living the dream. He's got it made, right? He calls me one day. His wife has MS, and he has another son who has a disability. So he has two family members. He's got 4 kids. He's got 2. He calls me, and he's almost in tears, and he says, Brad, Leslie lost her job today. What am I going to do? So we prayed, right? And it wasn't much long after that, he calls me up, and he says, God's telling me we need to plant a church. So we got to do it. And I was like, okay, let's do it, man. But I didn't have as much to lose because I was delivering mail. He was going to leave his job with no income. He was listening to God immediately. He left his job, had no income, 4 kids, a wife. He had to feed them. And he listens to what God tells him to do. And he goes out and he says, let's start this church. We'll call it Salvation Church. I'm like, cool, man, we'll make this work. And God has done so many things through him because of his listening heart. You're sitting out there right now. God's asking you to do something, right? God's been on you about wanting to join a group, wanting to do the parenting experience that we're going to be doing next week. But we also have Chris Duhan coming up, right? But the parenting experience, the real talk. Do we have the graphic? What's our first graphic? Yeah, a real talk. Some of you out there are struggling right now. How do you lead your children? Nobody likes to be told how to parent, right? Some people are like, I'm not going to do this because I don't want to be told how to be a better parent. The only person I like to be told how to be a better parent from is my mother-in-law. But, that's always a great one. But other than that, we want you guys to be a part of Real Talk because you're going to get to come and you're going to get to see you're going to get tips on how to be a better parent because I love learning, hence why I'm back in school. This is great for you guys. We want to encourage you to do that. Some of you families out there are like, I don't really want to do it. I want to watch football next week. Hey, I want to watch football too. But I'm going to be here learning how to be a better dad to my son. Both of them, both my kids at home. I want to be a better dad to them. So I want to encourage you guys to sign up for that. It's like a nice little plug in the middle of the message. We want you guys to sign up to go to Real Talk. Now, we know that a listening heart obeys immediately. And we also want to know the longer you wait to obey, the more you question what God is asking you to do. Some of you can relate with that, right? I can totally relate to that. I can hear what God's telling me, not audibly, but he'll lay it on my heart, and I can push it aside and go, nope, I'm going to be selfish, and I'm not going to do it. We can all do that. I can say I'm not going to Real Talk. You know what? Nobody's going to judge me if I'm not here, right? Don't we tell ourselves that? But God wants us to act immediately when he lays something on our heart. So I want to tell you guys a story because I love stories. Got to tell you about Trent. Now I want to share this story. This is one of the most, I say awesome a lot, but this is one of the most awesome stories of humility that I will ever get to share on stage at the Pointe Church. So when I was delivering mail one day, years ago, I was delivering this big box. And this box was huge. It was probably from here to there. It was a big box, barely fit in my truck. Got it out. I'm pulling it down, setting it up. I felt like somebody was taking a picture of me. Yep. You get that feeling where somebody's like taking a picture of you and laughing at you. And I felt like that. So I went home and I told my wife, I said, I feel like somebody was taking a picture of me today, but it wasn't a good picture. And she's like, oh, don't worry. You're just thinking that. I was going to say, I'm being stupid, but I was. And so the next day I come to work, I go into a business, and they're like, hey, Brad, we saw you on Snapchat last night. I'm like, what? I don't even have Snapchat. I'm like, really? I said, let me see this photo. And the photo was me in this big box, right? And it said, this guy struggled to carry this box, ha, 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 but making fun of me, really. And my wife, man, she was really, really hot at that moment because she got mad. She was physically hot because she's beautiful, but she was also mad. So I found out who did it, so she friended this person on Facebook because that's what you do. And she says, she's taking up for me. She's like, and she keeps talking to this woman, and this woman then starts liking our photos on the Facebook. I'm like, what is she doing? Why? I said, you like her? She makes fun of me. And she's like, she's not a bad person. I like her. I'm like, okay. So she continues to purchase things from this woman on her Etsy store, whatever store it is, I don't know. I'm like, I don't understand this, but this is how God works, right? This is the beauty and the wonder of how God works. I come back here. She's not in here right now, so you don't have to guess who it is. I come back here my first Sunday back, working at the Pointe Church. Guess who's visiting? Her. I saw her, yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go talk to this girl. So I walked over, and I gave my spiel. Hey, good to see you. I was very nice. Because I had moved on, right? I was in a safer space, lots of therapy. I was ready. She was like, okay. I think I startled her because I was talking to her and not bringing up the box incident, right? So, a couple years passed. I would always be friendly to her. My wife was still giving her our hard-earned money at the time. And eventually, I would say 3 years passed. This girl comes to our door, knocks on our door. I'm like, okay, well, she's here. That's great. Comes in our house, right? Says, can y'all sit down? I'm like, whoa, what's going to happen here? She's asking me to sit down in my house. Yeah, y'all, that's weird. I was like, okay, so we sat down. She stood in front of our fireplace. I would never forget it. She said, God wanted me to do this. Tears coming down her face. She said, I am so sorry for what I did to you. You have been nothing but nice to me, and I was cruel to you. She looked at me. I mean, she had tears streaming down her face. She said, I have to live with what I did. Will you forgive me? Greatest act of humility. Imagine walking into someone's house that you've never been in and saying, please forgive me. Some of you out there right now have that same situation in your life. There's someone you need to forgive, and there's someone that probably wants you to release them of that burden. We released her of her burden. I did, because I'm like, I really don't care. It's fine. It was years ago. I'm more buff at this point. I don't need it. But we released her. And it was funny. I called her this week because I wanted to make sure I could share this story. And she was like, please don't share my name. And I said, I would never do that. She said, even when you call me and I see your name pop up, my stomach sinks because I'm still worried you're going to be upset with me. And I said, praise God, I'll never be upset with you. Why? Why would we? We release it, right? But she acted. Did she act immediately? No. Did it take years? Yes. But when God came to her in her heart and said, I want you to go to that house, man, I can't imagine the courage it must have took to walk into someone's house and do that. Amazing. So I want to share that with you. Greatest act of humility I'll probably ever have in my life. But the longer we wait to obey, the more you question what God is asking you to do. And the longer you wait, the quieter God's voice gets. Think about that. If I keep asking my son, now it's opposite for our kids, right? Because if I ask my son, hey, I want you to clean your room, and he doesn't, I eventually go, I want you to clean your room, right? God's not like that. God's going to ask you, and he's 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 going to ask you. Because he wants you to listen. He wants you to have what Solomon requested. He wants you to be like Joseph and hear what he's saying. So with that, some of you are sitting out here right now, some of you men, right? Some of you guys like me, you want to be plugged in with what the men of our church are doing, right? And we do have an event. Do we have that graphic? Can we show that graphic? Yeah, Hang Time with Chris Duhon. We talked about that in the welcome earlier when y'all are coming in. You know, this is a great event for Duke fans, right? Get to come see Chris Duhon. Played at Duke, played in the NBA. More importantly, you get to create community with other men in our church. So we do want to ask you to take that step to connect. We have 2 steps we've talked about, right? We've talked about real talk. Now we've talked about Chris Duhon. We want you to take those steps. Matthew 2:16 through 18. Herod was furious when he realized that the wise man had outwitted him. He sent soldiers to kill all the boys in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years old and under. Based on the wise men's report of the star's first appearance, Herod's brutal action fulfilled what God had spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. A cry was heard in Ramah, weeping in great mourning. Rachel weeps for her children, refusing to be comforted, for they are dead. A listening heart is constantly in tune with the Lord. Think about that for a moment. Let that just rest in your brain. A listening heart is constantly in tune with the Lord. Again, we go back to Kings, and what is Solomon wanting? A listening heart and wisdom, so he knows when God's asking him to do something. One more story I want to share with you guys before we close. So I was in life group this week. Groups haven't started yet, but I meet with some guys at Chick-fil-A. We like to eat breakfast together. Tuesday mornings, if you're ever wanting to show up, you can. Tuesday, 6:30 in the morning at this Chick-fil-A. And we're sitting there as guys, and we're talking. We're not doing a lesson. We just come and eat breakfast together. And, well, not until groups start. Then we'll do something. But we're sitting there, and one of the guys in the group says, you know, I have a cool story to share. And I'm like, I love a cool story. So he said he was at the beach, and he went to get gas with his son. And he noticed a man sitting in the bushes holding a gas can. He pulled out, saw that man kind of hiding back there, and God laid on his heart, you need to turn around and go back. So he turned his truck around, pulled back in, walked over to the man, and he said, hey, can I help you? And he said, yeah, I just need 5 gallons of gas, and I'll be on my way. He said, well, why are you sitting hidden in the bushes? And the man said, God told me if I sit right here, someone will come help me. So he filled his gas can up, and he walked down the road. Acted immediately. A listening heart is constantly in tune with the Lord. So now, Matthew, we're on verse 19. When Herod died, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt. Get up, the angel said, take the child and the mother back to the land of Israel, because those who were trying to kill the child are dead. So Joseph got up. He didn't wait. He didn't say, I'm going to sleep this one out. He got up, returned to the land of Israel with Jesus and his mother. But when he learned that the new ruler of Judea was Herod's son, Archelaus, he was afraid to go there. Then, after being warned in a dream, he left for the region of Galilee. So the family went and lived in a town called Nazareth. This fulfilled what the prophets had said. He will be called a Nazarene. Imagine if Joseph had not listened to God. Imagine if he didn't have a God-listening heart and a God-listening ears, and he didn't act immediately. What would have happened to the baby? What are you not doing in your life right now? What are you turning your listening ears off? I tell my son all the time, turn your listening ears up. I need you to listen. What are you turning them down for that God's wanting you to do right now? Group season is starting. Do we have that graphic behind me? Yeah. Group season. Group season's starting. We're excited about groups here at the Pointe Church. We want you to get into a group. Some of you right now have been saying, I don't want to get into a group. We are providing steps. We want you to take your next step. And one of those ways to connect is through group life, which starts soon. We want you to be a part of group life. Some of you just need to sign up so you can get plugged in at our church. We want to encourage you to do that. God's talking to you right now, and he's saying, I want you to be in group. I want you to be at the Parenting Real Talk. I want you to be at the Hang Time with Chris Duhan. Even if you can only do one of them, do one of them. Just choose one that you really want to do. All of them are great. You're not going to hurt my feelings if you say I'm not going to be in a group this semester, but you're going to come to Real Talk. That's a win. Listen to what God is saying. So what? How are your listening ears when it comes to God? How are your listening ears when it comes to God? Do a self-assessment right now. Think about it in your mind. How are your listening ears when it comes to God? So now what? Well, stop delaying and start listening. Stop delaying and start listening. You have 3 opportunities coming up in the next 3 weeks that you can do. We want to encourage you to do that. Let's bow our heads. If you're sitting out there right now and nobody looking around, please don't look around, and you're ready to start listening to God, because some of you haven't been listening. Sometimes I'm guilty of that. And you want to start listening, raise your hand. Let's see if you're ready to start listening. Anybody wanting to start listening? My hands are raised. Yeah, thank you. If you're sitting out there right now and you don't even know who God is, you're like, you talked about God this whole time. You talked about Solomon. You talked about Joseph. I don't know God. If you're sitting out there right now, just say this prayer after me. Dear God, I want to know you. I want that listening heart. I want those ears that can be in tune with you. I want to go to people and release them of the burden they've been feeling because I've sinned against them. I've wronged them. Lord, forgive me of my sins. I want to come to you right now. I want to stand before you like she stood before me. And I want to say, Lord, forgive me.